Ladies and gentlemen, we are officially halfway through 2025. And over the next couple of days, we'll be making a few videos reviewing the year in WWE thus far. And it starts with today's video because in today's video, we're going to be ranking every single WWE main roster premium live event match from worst to best. And we'll obviously do this again at the end of the year so that we can look back at every single PLE match in 2025. Don't worry, just because it's halfway through the year doesn't mean we don't have a lot of matches. There's a total of 63 matches to rank. Thanks WWE for having an infinite amount of WWE premium live events this year. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I know that you're going to fall in love with this YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. And don't forget, if you are looking for more than just the daily wrestling content that we upload here, come over to the Patreon, patreon.com/SantiZap, where you're going to get even more content that we can never upload here because we use footage over there and it would just get blocked here due to copyright. So go check it out. Link in the description or link in the pinned comment. All right, let's get started. Let's start things off at number 63, what I think is currently the worst WWE premium live event match of the entire year. And if you know anything about me, if you've followed this channel even for just a couple of months, you know what match is about to appear here. That's right, I have John Cena versus Cody Rhodes. The main event of Night 2 WrestleMania 41 is what I think is the worst match of the WWE premium live event calendar year. It's just slow, boring, and the ending is a travesty, and you can't spell travesty without Travis Scott. There's just no redeeming quality about this match, and it also makes it worse that this is how they ended their biggest show of the entire year. So when you encapsulate a bad match with a terrible twist, and the fact that this closed out the biggest show of the entire year, it is just a beautifully packaged piece of trash. At number 62, we have the Saturday night's main event match for the Women's United States Championship between Zelina Vega and Chelsea Green. This was a tough watch, a few botches, just a boring match. It was short and honestly an entirely forgettable affair. The reason why it's not entirely forgettable is because it's bad, and it's bad enough for it to be memorable. But that's not a reason why you ever want to be remembered. To be the worst out of all of the bad Saturday night's main event matches that we've had so far, honestly, it's kind of impressive. At number 61, we have a match that's like not even a match really. It should barely even be on here. That's the Randy Orton versus Joe Hendry match at WrestleMania 41. We know that this wasn't supposed to be Randy Orton's match. It probably would have been a classic against Kevin Owens. Instead, we got an impromptu match against Joe Hendry, something that was just there for fan service, only lasted a handful of minutes, and it didn't really ruin anything, but it certainly didn't add to the show from an in-ring perspective. It was purely there for the cheap pop of Joe Hendry and just to give Randy something to do. I don't actually hate this at all. I just know that I can't really compare it to many of the other matches that are on here on an objective basis because, again, this is really just there for the Joe Hendry pop. And number 60, I would say, is a really forgettable match. We have a match here from Worlds Collide, the women's tag team match that featured Lola Vice and Stephanie Vaquer. I can barely remember this match because it was far and away the shortest match of the evening, but also it just sort of stood out as a match that didn't really take many risks, partly because Stephanie Vaquer was in a match a couple of hours later in the Women's Money in the Bank, so you couldn't really risk Stephanie Vaquer getting hurt here and showcasing her full moveset of moves. But yeah, this was entirely forgettable. I'm glad the match existed, but it's not really something that I'm going to really be remembering or wanting to rewatch down the line. And number 59 is another throwaway match that WWE just sort of came up with on the spot. That's Dominic Mysterio versus Octagon Jr. This was really just there to pad out the Money in the Bank match card. They announced this literally like an hour before Money in the Bank even started. And honestly, they picked the wrong person. Had they gone with Mr. Iguana, this would have actually been so much bigger. It would have created so much buzz. Nothing wrong with Octagon, but this was only 5 minutes, no build, no hype, in a very, I guess, lazy way to showcase AAA. And number 58, I have a match that I don't think should have ever existed. I mean, it should have just been a singles match, but it ended up being a tag team match at Elimination Chamber between Tiffany Stratton and Trish Stratus going up against Candice LeRae and Nia Jax. Nothing fundamentally wrong with this match. It just shouldn't have been on a PLE. This is a type of match that you could have found on any random episode of Friday Night SmackDown. In my opinion, this should have either been a singles match between Tiffany and Trish or just done another singles match between Trish Stratus and Nia Jax. A tag team match was entirely forgettable. No one really stood out in this match, and it easily was the worst match of this night. night. At number 57, I mostly have this out of spite. I just don't think that this match should have ever existed at WrestleMania, but it's not a bad match in any regard from an in-ring perspective. That's the New Day versus the War Raiders for the World Tag Titles at WrestleMania 41. I'm spiteful about this match, and I'm vindictively putting this really low because this should have been the SmackDown Tag Titles. This should have been the TLC match. Instead, they opted to do this incredibly boring match that had no hype at all whatsoever, and nobody asked for or wanted or remembers. We had the New Day win the World Tag Titles, but I honestly, I could have easily forgotten that this is where they won the tag titles because this is such a forgettable affair. At 56, we have a match that under most circumstances should have even been lower on this list, but it somehow managed to shock me, and it wasn't as bad as it probably ought to have been. That's Gunther versus Goldberg at Saturday night's main event. This accomplished everything that it needed to accomplish, but just because it hit all of the right notes doesn't mean that it was good. It's still just a Goldberg match. I will say, I guess it's one of the longest Goldberg matches of his entire career, but in those 14 minutes and 22 seconds, I don't think he did much more than he would have done if the match had just been 6 minutes. WWE SummerSlam is closing in quickly, and I'm sure that you've already heard that ticket prices are getting rather steep. I plan on going to the show this year to both nights. However, I intend to make sure I get the best seats at the best possible prices possible. And I'll be doing that thanks to today's video sponsor, SeatGeek. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app, and for a good reason. Because there's more than 70,000 events already listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and so much more. And with SeatGeek, you can be sure that you're going to be getting the best absolute price for whatever seat that you want at whatever show you plan to attend. All WWE premium shows, as well as every episode of Raw and SmackDown tickets, are all available on SeatGeek as well. So make sure to stop by there first before you buy your tickets so that you can make sure that you're getting the best price there is. SeatGeek actually shows you if you're getting a good deal or not on whatever ticket that you're currently browsing. You'll want to look for the green dots. Green means good, red means bad in terms of pricing. Plus, every ticket is also backed by their buyer guarantee as well. And you know that I came through for you guys because you can use code SANTI10 for 10% off your next set of tickets over at SeatGeek. Again, that's 10% off any tickets with promo code SANTI10. So make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so that you can use it later. Thank you again to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get you back to the wrestling conversation that you came for. At number 55, I have a bit of a disappointment. I really thought that this could have been a breakout match for Jade Cargill, considering she was working with such a great worker in Asuka, but I just feel like Jade Cargill and Asuka just did not have the chemistry in this match. This was also significantly the shortest match of this event as well, which is kind of weird to me because this was the Queen of the Ring finals, and it's a shame because the previous finals between Lyra and Nia Jax was a really solid match. This was not a solid match. It wasn't egregiously bad, but it was just boring, and I just didn't think that Asuka and Jade Cargill worked particularly great together. At number 54, we've got another Saturday night's main event match. We have Jimmy Uso versus Solo Sikoa. This actually isn't a bad match. It's just, again, like many of these Saturday night's main event matches, I could have easily found this on Friday Night SmackDown and just wasn't special for something that is a premium show like Saturday night's main event. It certainly didn't help that this match was going up directly against the death match happening in All In over in AEW. But this was a fun showcase of Jimmy Uso's moveset. It was a quick reminder that honestly, as an in-ring performer, he's actually better than Jay, if you ask me. But pretty formulaic, nothing really to get excited about. The return of Jacob Fatu post-match was an interesting post-match angle, but nothing that is going to be super memorable. At number 53, we have a match that I'm sure you forgot existed, but it actually wasn't that bad. I'm talking about Rhea Ripley versus Nia Jax. I actually remember this match being better than their main event of Elimination Chamber Perth a couple of years ago. This actually isn't bad. This was maybe the best Nia Jax Rhea Ripley match that we've gotten so far of their career since they've had so damn many. At number 52, we have another recent one from Saturday night's main event. We have Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre. Obviously, this is a big star-studded match, but I also felt like they played it pretty safe, mostly because the big buzz and talking point of this match was never meant to be the actual match, considering there really wasn't much of a story being told between Randy and Drew McIntyre in the lead up to this match. Sure, there's history between Drew and Randy, but in terms of like short-term narratives leading into this, there really wasn't much. And this match was more concerned about setting setting up the story with Jelly Roll and Logan Paul to set up their match at SummerSlam, that this match is going to be forgotten as early as probably as this video publishes. At number 51, we have a match that I think many of us were hoping was going to be better. It wasn't bad, but we wanted it to be better so that the guy that was involved in this match could get more opportunities. We're talking about Sami Zayn versus Karrion Kross. This was also a little bit of a frustrating match with how they booked Sami Zayn as just getting his ass kicked, only for him last second to once again miraculously Superman style make a comeback that he should not have been making. This also gave us the really frustrating like check 3 times instead of 1 time with Sami Zayn, but that's just me being a nerdy, annoying wrestling fan. But yeah, I wanted this to be better mostly because I wanted Karrion Kross to get more opportunities off the back of this. It turns out that he is getting more opportunities, so I guess ultimately we did end up getting what we wanted. At 50, we have Seth Rollins versus LA Knight. I'll go back and watch this. The match was actually solid. What they were doing was one of LA Knight's best matches so far on the main roster, to the surprise of no one, considering he's working alongside Seth Rollins. Unfortunately, it ended the way that it did, abruptly with the injury. This could have been significantly higher on this list had we been able to get to the proper finish of the match, but unfortunately, that did not end up being able to be the case, so it does rank fairly low, but I don't think this is a bad match. At number 49, we have another Solo Sikoa match, this time the match against Jacob Fatu. I would say that this is Jacob's weaker match out of his United States Championship reign. This is memorable because it was the, I guess, formation of MFT, the debut of Tala Tonga. We had a new US champion, but nothing that was like bad, but also nothing that's like, oh my God, what a great match. This is a pretty run-of-the-mill match, if you ask me. At number 48, if you told me that at the beginning of the year when this match was announced that it was going to rank this low, I'd call you crazy, because I thought this had potential to be the greatest women's match of all time. I'm not kidding. And I think many of you felt that way as well. I'm talking about Charlotte Flair versus Tiffany Stratton, one of the most disappointing matches of the entire year. These two just simply had zero chemistry with one another. You could tell they just didn't want to work with one another, and I'm glad that they didn't revisit this post-WrestleMania, because this match was an absolute stinker. Tiffy's entrance was pretty awesome. Charlotte's entrance at WrestleMania is always grandiose, but once that bell rung, that match, it was a rough watch. At number 47, another really disappointing match, because normally women's gimmick matches are better than the men's, but that was not the case this year with the women's Royal Rumble match. One of the most frustrating Royal Rumble matches in recent memory in terms of how it was booked, the winner, the choreography of like storylines being played out, in that there really weren't any. The Nia Jax spot of her eliminating like 15 people in one go. It's a very, very frustrating Royal Rumble match that ranks quite low in the totem pole of just overall women's Rumble matches. At 46, we have a match that I really don't think is bad. I think everything from here on out, I'm like, yeah, that was pretty good. I'm talking about Jade Cargill versus Naomi. I don't think that this stole the show, but I think it earned its spot at WrestleMania. It went into WrestleMania with a really hot storyline, and it paid it off with a pretty decent match, and the hot storyline got to continue beyond WrestleMania. I think that they did everything that they needed to do in this match. At 45, I have a decent match, but it's just not what we wanted. It's Logan Paul versus AJ Styles. I think the reason why this flopped as hard as it did was because this wasn't a Logan Paul WrestleMania match. He wasn't trying to create that viral WrestleMania moment. Instead, he decided to try and have a good old wrestling match. And yeah, it was fine, I guess, in that regard, but like, this is just not what we want to get out of Logan Paul. We want to get the big buzz talking points, and we didn't get that out of this match. It was just a run-of-the-mill decent match. Number 44, we have a match that I think could have been much better. There was a lot of drama at the end, but it was really short because of the time constraint of Saturday night's main event. I'm talking about Jey Uso versus Logan Paul. If you remember, this had the ending with John Cena trying to help Logan Paul pick up the victory. You had Cody Rhodes going out there. So to me, this was held up and propped up as high as it is on this list because of the big names that appeared, the shenanigans. There was a lot of drama there for a second and making me actually believe that Logan Paul was going to win this thing. But it didn't help the fact that this match started with like 9 minutes left on the clock because of Saturday night's main event's time constraints. At 43, another disappointing match. I was certain this was going to be a match of the year contender. The women's Money in the Bank ladder match featuring Stephanie Vaquer, Alexa Bliss, Roxanne Perez, Julia, Rhea Ripley, and Naomi. When you look at that field, how can you not think that this is going to be the best women's Money in the Bank ladder match? Unfortunately, this match played it really, really safe. There there was very little in the way of like big memorable spots. The spots that they did took a long time to set up, were slow, and when they finally did execute them after a long time of setting them up, they weren't that good to warrant how long they took to set up. I liked the winner, of course, Naomi. That was pretty sick, but the actual match itself was a big disappointment for me. At number 42, we have the 6-man tag match between Legado del Fantasma, Psycho Clown, Pagano, and Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. It was fun. I actually was weirdly disappointed by this match, though. I thought that there was going to be a lot more high flying, considering there was a 6-man tag match that happened on earlier in the night with names that I didn't think were going to do as good as these names that we had here. But I would say that the other 6-man tag match was actually significantly better. This was okay. At 41, we have the Evolution Women's Battle Royale. The Battle Royale actually wasn't great. I would say out of all of the matches at Evolution, it was the worst match of the night, based on like the kind of cringy things that were happening in the ring, the weird places to eliminate some big names, the fact that Julia had little to no impact being the only champion going into that Battle Royal, but luckily they salvaged it with a great result, having Stephanie Vaquero come out as the winner, which definitely propelled this much higher than it honestly deserved to be. At 40, you know what? We're going to do these back to back. We have Gunther versus Jey Uso at Saturday night's main event, and at 39, Gunther versus Jey Uso at WrestleMania 41. I think that the WrestleMania 41 match is better, but I don't think it's that much better. I think it's better because if you go back and watch that WrestleMania match, Jey Uso tried different moves. It wasn't just super kick, super kick, super kick, splash. He actually tried to be a bit of a professional wrestler there to try and go up against Gunther. I don't think that either one is significantly better than the other. If you wanted to swap the two, I wouldn't really care. But yeah, this is where Gunther and Jey Uso, this saga ultimately plays out. Their match on Monday Night Raw, where Gunther won the World Heavyweight Championship, it isn't on this list because it wasn't on a PLE, but that was their best match. At number 38, we have a really solid match. I would say that everything from here on out, I'm like, this is good. We have Trish Stratus versus Tiffany Stratton for the WWE Women's Championship at Evolution. Did this steal the show? No. Was it only 8 minutes? Yeah, but in those 8 minutes, we saw a glimpse of what could have been a really fantastic match. Had they been given more time, 13, 14, 15 minutes, we could have seen a little bit of a mini classic. These two had wonderful chemistry with one another. Trish Stratus looked fantastic. She still got it, dude. Like, if Trish Stratus wanted to come back for a full-time run in the WWE, we would be better off because of that. And Tiffany Stratton looked great in this match as well. I was like pleasantly surprised with how good this was. At 37, we have a match that, depending on how you look at things, could actually be much lower on this list, but I have it at 37 because I think it's a match that accomplished everything that it needed to accomplish in terms of creating emotional attachment to the match, even if it was only like a 4-minute match that really didn't impact a heck of a whole lot. That being John Cena versus R-Truth at Saturday night's main event. The emotions that I was feeling in this match of laughter, of sadness, of shock, everything. I felt it all in the 4 or 5 minutes that we had between John Cena and R-Truth. And that is what wrestling is about. It's about creating memories. It's about creating emotions. And this was a hell of a memorable match, to the point that it got me out there to buy a Ron Cena shirt. At 36, we have the other 6-man tag match, this time, of course, featuring the legendary Mr. Iguana and, of course, LWO. But this was a really, really solid match. This was the match that kicked off the night. I thought this was going to be a okay, whatever match, but it ended up being so much fun. This was a great showcase of what AAA was about. It made Mr. Iguana into a household name. It was a quick reminder that the guys from LWO absolutely bang when they're allowed to bang on WWE TV. This was a really, really solid match all around, and it made me optimistic about the rest of Worlds Collide, a show that I went into going like, this feels like a throwaway, but after this match, this elevated my expectations for the rest of the night because this was solid. At 35, we have a match that at the end of the day really pissed me off, but not because of the match itself, but because of how WWE followed it up with their lack of booking, that being Braun Strowman versus Jacob Fatu at Saturday night's main event. This was Jacob Fatu's breakout. This is where he absolutely decimated Braun Strowman. The match didn't have a definitive ending, but it accomplished what it needed to, which was to make both of these guys look badass, but to extra make into a badass Jacob Fatu. He looked amazing in this match. He like murdered Braun Strowman, had him bleeding from the mouth, only for Braun Strowman to just appear at the Royal Rumble as if nothing happened to him like 5 days later. This is why this match pissed me off, but I think I was more pissed off about the Royal Rumble than I was by this. At 34, make it make sense. How can you win by going through the door? We have the cage match between Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre. Not as good as their street fight at WrestleMania, which we'll talk about here in just a second, but a solid match nonetheless, made even better by the commentary of Jesse the Body Ventura. At 33, we have a match that was a throwaway, kind of made last second, but it was good. I'm talking about Dominic Mysterio versus Penta. This is kind of where the meme started of Dominic Mysterio only facing geometric shapes like octagon and pentagon. I was halfway expecting at some point for Dominic Mysterio to face off against the legendary Hijo del Triangle over in AAA. But yeah, Dominic versus Penta, it's a good match. It just didn't really have a great like story behind it to really make you care about what was happening from like a story perspective. But the in-ring between these two, to the shock of nobody, was really solid at Backlash. At 32, we have the women's tag match at WrestleMania 41, Liv and Raquel going up against Lyra and Becky Lynch. I still would have liked the Intercontinental Championship to have been on the line, but ultimately, you know, looking back on it, I think it's cool that WWE made this match to give more women the ability to appear on this show, and honestly, they were fantastic. There's not a single bad thing that I have about this match. Would have been nice to have Bayley, you know, get a cool WrestleMania moment, but having the return of Becky Lynch was a big deal, and obviously Becky Lynch has been such a renaissance since her return at this match. At 31, we have a match that was like, why does this exist? But once it happened, I was like, okay, that was actually like pretty solid and significantly better than it had any right to be. We're talking about Gunther versus Pat McAfee. I don't understand why this wasn't just a squash match, you know? This is Gunther, one of the scariest dudes ever. Pat McAfee, just a commentator. But Pat McAfee was a lot of fun in this. He showed a lot of grit, a lot of hustle, a lot of tussle, and Gunther looked like a badass, even if it wasn't a squash match to make him look like a badass. I thought that this was weirdly fun. At number 30, we have the Evolution NXT women's match between JC Jane and Jordynne Grace. Just a good, solid in-ring affair with a good amount of fun shenanigans involving the heel turn of Blake Monroe and all of JC Jane's buddies in Fatal Influence getting involved as well. Just a solid match with a good swerve at the end. At 29, we have the follow-up of the WrestleMania 41 clash between Naomi and Jade Cargill, made significantly better with the involvement of Bianca Belair, adding more star power, but also making this a no-holds-barred match just allowed for this to become a little bit of a spot fest. And I feel like it was spots that were earned by the story of this match. So overall, just a thumbs up from this match as well. At 28, we have a match that I know you forgot about, because when I was doing research for this, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that this happened. And it was a really solid match, but based on the crowd reaction, you'd think it was dog shit. I'm talking about the tag team match between DIY and the Motor City Machine Guns. Really, really solid tag team match, but it really just got no reaction at all whatsoever. It's making me believe that it was Indianapolis that borderline almost killed the tag team division with their lack of reaction to this fantastic match, because I think it's this lack of reaction that made them miss WrestleMania. So shout out to Indianapolis doing their best to almost kill the tag team division by not giving a damn about it. Number 27, we already talked about it. Make it make sense, but this time it is Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre, their Sin City street fight. Lots of fun spots. You have the board at work moment. It was just violence that felt earned considering the storyline between these two. It was a storyline that didn't have too much, care from the fans, but WWE certainly tried to make us care, and I think that ultimately they paid it off really well by making this a street fight and allowing these guys to just beat the crap out of each other. 26, we have a solid Saturday night's main event match, the tag team match of CM Punk and Sami Zayn going up against Braun Breaker and Seth Rollins. From an actual in-ring, this was a really, really solid match, but of course, the reason why this gets propelled, it's the big moment of the reveal of the question that at this point we were all asking, who's the third member of Seth's group, as it's revealed to be Bronson Reed. Honestly, just a solid match all around with a great plot progression inserted into it, a plot progression that kind of made us all rethink Saturday night's main event, because if you remember, before that happened, all of us just sort of believed that Saturday night's main event was not canon. At 25, we have a really solid match from WrestleMania 41. We have the United States Women's Championship match between LA Knight and Jacob Fatu. I had already rated this at the time as LA Knight's best match of his main roster career. It was just a really, really solid match. Great chemistry between LA Knight and Jacob Fatu, and it crowned a new megastar within the WWE and Jacob Fatu. Just a solid all-around match between these guys. At 24, kind of the continuation of the match that we just talked about, but you just add more names, and it's Jacob Fatu, LA Knight, Damian Priest, and Drew McIntyre, and to the surprise of nobody, when you just add more good names like Drew and Damian to an equation that already had two great names that worked well with each other in LA Knight and Jacob Fatu, you ultimately got a solid match, and you had the hijinks of the huge debut of JC Mateo. At 23, a match that I had just no excitement for, still wonder why it even existed. I still question that they should have done this, but it was the tag team match between John Cena and Logan Paul going up against Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso. For the first good half of this match, I was not impressed by this. It was really boring. It was basically just Jey Uso getting beat up by John Cena and Logan Paul for a huge portion of this match. It's when the hot tag happens, when things just sort of break loose within this match and actually becomes a lot of fun. In the final moments of this match, Logan Paul was an absolute beast. That crazy springboard moonsault through the table. Then you had the shenanigans with the return of Ron Killings. That was crazy. So this was definitely saved by the last 10 minutes because the last 10 minutes of this match were wonderful. At 22, I have what I think is the best Saturday Night's Main Event match of the entire year and since the return of this brand. The Intercontinental Championship match between Sheamus and Braun Breaker was just truly fantastic, and I question why they never revisited this after Saturday Night's Main Event, because they put on an absolute banger on this show. At 21, we have Rhea Ripley versus Raquel Rodriguez in the, what did they call this? It was the Riyadh Boulevard Street Fight, I believe was the proper name. But Rhea Ripley and Raquel Rodriguez have always had fantastic chemistry with one another. You can go back to their feud a couple of years ago when Raquel was the babyface and Rhea was the heel. We always knew Rhea was going to win, but they always put together really solid matches, and they did here as well. But this time you add weapons and cool spots, and you just have the best version of this match that we've seen numerous times throughout their career. At 20, we have the wonderful women's fatal four-way for the tag titles in Judgment Day. The what do they call the Allies of Convenience, Zaruka, and oh my god, what I'm trying to remember all of their tag Kabuki Warriors. It took me a second there. Yeah, just a really good match with a bit of a shocking ending. I think everyone in this match looked so good. Everyone got their time to shine. They all got to do their tandem of tag team moves. And if this is the way to revive the tag team division, then so be it. But it was shocking to have the Judgment Day ultimately win this, but it was a pleasant surprise because Raquel and Roxy have been working really well together, and I'm glad that they didn't lose the titles that early. At 19, we have a match that is just a mess in all of the best types of ways. We have the John Cena versus Randy Orton match billed as one last time. This is a match where they knew, listen, we can't just go out there and have a match. We just don't have it in us anymore. Let's just go out there and do an infinite finisher fest, a bunch of tables. Let's have Ron Killings run out there. Let's have Randy Orton hit all of the authority figures with RKOs. It was just a mess, but it was the best type of mess. I love this match. At 18, we have a match that was made impromptu, but man, was the in-ring ever amazing. We have El Grande Americano versus Rey Fenix. Just from the crazy stuff that they were doing in ring, this match scores really highly with me. I wish it was longer because it was actually on the shorter side, 8 minutes. Had they gotten a handful of more minutes, man, they could have put together a secret little classic at WrestleMania. The short amount of time that we got between these two, and considering this is the first time that they worked together, man, they put out fireworks. At 17, that same show, WrestleMania 41, the Intercontinental Championship Fatal 4-Way between Dominic, Finn, Penta, and Braun Breaker. Holy hell, was this match so much fun. It was balls to the wall, full speed ahead. There was never a moment to breathe in this match. The best type of Fatal 4-Way where all four guys are part of the offense at all times. It's chaotic, and the end result of Finn Balor about to pick up the victory only for Dominic to steal it last second was brilliant. At 16, we have the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. This was just awesome. I'm so glad that they ended up adding Andrade, even as questionable as a decision as that was, because he really meshed really well with everyone here. The actual like in-ring was chaotic. The spots were crazy, but the storylines that were being told within this match were also really solid as well. The story of Penta and the Bronze and Seth Rollins, LA Knight, the feud blossoming there with Seth Rollins, the stuff with Solo and Jacob Fatu that was happening. It was just so good. At 15, we have the women's Elimination Chamber match. Just a really solid chamber match that had the fun swerve at the very beginning of the match with Jade Cargill showing to the world that it was Naomi that attacked her, and it set up that feud. And then we had an awesome finishing sequence with Liv Morgan and Bianca Belair. Like, this match was just a really solid women's chamber. At 14, we have the King of the Ring finals between Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes. I certainly hope that this is not their last match. For their first match, I think that this was a really solid affair, just a good wrestling match. I did think that it got maybe a little bit too overcomplicated there at the end with the exposed turnbuckle and whatnot, but it is the exposed turnbuckle spot that allows for an open-ended ending to give us the opportunity to easily revisit this again. At 13, we have the men's chamber, like just a fantastic chamber match with great callbacks, great story progression within the match itself as well. An awesome ending there with John Cena and CM Punk. The crazy ending with Seth Rollins taking out CM Punk to help John Cena. And of course, the follow-up and everything that happened there at the end with the selling of the soul, the Cena heel turn. I included all as part of this. This was great. At 12, we have the awesome Fatal 4-Way match at Worlds Collide for the North American title between Laredo Kid, Javon Evans, Ray Phoenix, and Ethan Page. This was such a good, like, meshing of worlds. Out of all of the matches that felt Worlds Collide-y, of like different styles mixing into a match, this felt like the most collide-y of all of the worlds because of the different styles in professional wrestling that you have here. But this was just a really, really good match. Ethan Page picking up the victory, but just a great showcase of every single one of these guys individually. At 11, we have the, I guess, honorary bloodline rules. We have John Cena versus CM Punk. This thing was a mess in all the best kinds of ways, as more messy than the mess that was John Cena versus Randy Orton. But I think WWE knows at this point that John Cena matches, they just need to be a mess. You can't keep them squeaky clean, just a singles match. Otherwise, they're just not that particularly interesting. But the actual match between Cena and Punk was just such a nice blast from the past. Like you could squint and it felt like I was watching Money in the Bank 2011, but the stuff with the cash in, everybody making the run-ins, the ending was just so much fun with John Cena stealing it there at the very end. This was so much fun. We're in the top 10, and the next three are basically bang, bang, bang. All right. At 10, you have Lyra versus Becky, Money in the Bank. At number 9, you have Lyra versus Becky at Backlash. At number 8, you have Lyra versus Becky versus Bayley at Evolution. This whole thing that's going on with the Women's Intercontinental Championship, chef's kiss. 3 matches within the top 10, and I think that like most people would probably rank all 3 of these matches really high. For me, the Backlash match and this triple threat match are really close, but I gave the slight edge to this match because the inclusion of Bayley really added a lot more flow and rhythm to the match throughout the entire thing. But yeah, this match rules, this feud rules, the women's IC title picture rules. We have 3 of them in the top 10. At number 7, we have the insanity that was the men's Royal Rumble match, the most stacked, star-studded Rumble match of all time, with so many storylines being told within the match itself. A shocking winner. I know a lot of you guys didn't love the fact that Jey Uso won, but when WWE can still shock me with something like that, it's always going to make me a happy camper and a happy wrestling fan. The men's Rumble match, this is a memorable one. At number 6, we're sticking in the Royal Rumble. Fellas, how good was the ladder match between Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens to determine who truly was the undisputed champion? You gotta remember, you had Kevin running around with the old school Winged Eagle belt, which was so much fun and added just a nice little extra je ne sais quoi to this storyline. The spots in this match are legitimately insane. Some of the craziest one-on-one ladder match spots that I've ever seen. When Kevin Owens countered the superplex into like that package driver that he does from the top rope onto a ladder onto Cody Rhodes, that was insane. And of course, the Alabama Slammer that ended the match through the ladder. Like, dude, this match rocked. At number 5, this is why losing Kevin Owens was so sad when we lost him, because he was on a heater of a run with his career here. Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn, the Unsanctioned unsanctioned match at Elimination Chamber was otherworldly. Believe it or not, I actually haven't seen this match on TV because I want to have my own memory of it from being there. I don't want to hear it with commentary. I don't want to see the different angles. I want to remember it by what I saw with my own two eyes. And what I saw was one of the most violent matches that I've ever seen. Kind of crazy that there was no blood in this match, considering all of the insane spots, which included a barbed wire lace steel chair. Are you kidding me? Yeah, this match absolutely ruled. I think that this and the ladder match are like really, really close, but I like this a little bit more. At number 4, we have honestly just a classic. I think everything from here on is like an actual just classic WWE match. We have the Worlds Collide match between Hijo del Vikingo and Chad Gable. Literally the only reason why this might not be higher is because it just sort of lacked that emotional attachment from there being just no story. This was just, hey, one of WWE's best versus AAA's best. Put them together. Let's see what kind of magic they can make. And it turns out that they can make Dumbledore levels of wonderful magic here. This match was absolutely amazing. At number 3, many people might have this as like their number 2 or their number 1. The women's triple threat match at WrestleMania between Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, and Bianca Belair was out of this world good. It was an actual perfect match. A perfect match. Everyone in this match looked amazing. All 3 of them had 10 out of 10 chemistry with each other. The ending sequence was amazing. Io Sky somehow getting out of there, going up against the 2 biggest names in women's professional wrestling today and retaining the championship was a nice surprise. This match is literal perfection. At number 2, we have the men's triple threat on that same show. Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and CM Punk. Also just a perfect match, a wonderful in-ring affair, but unlike many of the matches that we have on here, one of the reasons why this scores so high is this knocked it out of the park with its storytelling. It had a wonderful story going in, and then it told a wonderful story during the match, and then it told an even better story there at the end with the betrayal of Paul Heyman betraying both Roman Reigns first and then betraying CM Punk. Just wonderful stuff all around. This is like the perfect package in terms of like a combination of great storytelling and great in-ring. This has it all. And at number 1, I do have Io Sky versus Rhea Ripley. I feel a lot more confident now that time has passed that this is the greatest women's match that I've ever seen in my entire life with these beautiful eyeballs. It's funny because unlike the triple threat match that we just saw, this lacked a story entirely going into it. But the story within the match of Rhea never being able to put Io Sky away really built up the more and more as the match went. But even though there was no story to be had going into it, they made a story on the back end of it with the cash-in. Best women's cash-in of all time, bar none. One of the best cash-ins, period, with Naomi cashing in at the end of this genuinely perfect 10 out of 10 classic between Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. And that's it so far. We're gonna revisit this list closer to the end of the year once we have all WWE PLE said and done, but this was a nice little halfway point review of the entire PLE year. But that's it, folks. We'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. Goodbye. Get out of here.